right, folks. Here we are, another episode of Landlord Conversation. Your the month in review of what you need to know, what's going on here in the month of August. I'm joined, as always, by Kayla Andrade from Front Lobby, as well as Ontario Landlord Watch, and Mr. Rob Lisi from Stonegate Legal Services, and myself, Kevin Breitner, with Cressy Property Management and Remax Hallmark. We all specialize in helping landlords, and we want to make sure that you guys are up to date and always knowing what's going on in the world, in the landlord and tenant world, so you can best protect yourselves and just be on top of the ball. So the big news, I guess, that we'll start off with right now, if you heard from Mayor Olivia Chow, who says that she is going to fix properties and then bill the landlord. Kind of funny how she's going out there and attacking just like that, eh?
Oh my God. Like if you go on YouTube right now, guys, and say the worst landlord in all of Canada, and it's going to be Toronto Community Housing. And I think it was almost like the strategy. If you look at what happened recently with the landlord licensing that has now obviously caught on like some type of viral trend on TikTok, it's landlord licensing. So she introduced landlord licensing or renoviction, renoviction licensing for giving you got to pay money, you got to pay for travel expenses or like travel moving costs for landlords who are obviously trying to renovate their properties. And now she's traveling into other landlords' properties and looking at obviously issues. And I don't deny there is issues there, but let's also talk about how much is the rent for that in particular property. That could kind of clue in why the landlord's being neglectful. But at the same time, she's going to come into that property and she's going to get it fixed and she's going to build a landlord and probably put it on their property taxes. So it just seems like just an attack on the investors who are investing in Toronto. And then you wonder why our elected officials are wondering why don't we have our supply? Why are we short on these housing starts that are happening across the province? This is why municipal policies and municipal elected officials who are out there creating policies to create that smoke and mirror to make it look like they're doing something for the tenant population.
Well, I guess the only comment that I can make is that, in a way, I do agree with part of it, where there are some bad landlords out there, and
Hmm.
under the Residential Tenancies Act, under Section 20, it is the landlord's responsibility to upkeep and repair. But to arbitrarily make that decision where they're going to go out, hire God knows who to do the work, and then bill the landlord, that I don't agree with. Now, there are good landlords, there are bad landlords. And yeah, the bad landlords, this would be a good thing. But what about the good landlords that Kayla just said that the rents are too low and they don't have the money or the bureaucracy to go through the renoviction process to get these tenants out so that they can do what they need to do to the property?
And Rob, this is where we talk about when you have a situation, we have a process, we have the provincial government that's in there that why aren't like they already put out, they even have little town halls for tenants in Toronto.
Yep.
And like you're educating tenants on their rights. You can teach them, and it's obviously you can put it everywhere in the sun how tenants can deal with maintenance issues. And how come they get a different route than what the landlords have to go through when they have a problem or they have a tenant damaging the property? I've seen landlords who've had tenants damage their property to the point where property standards had came in and still ordered the landlord to fix what they've broken. And it's like, well, the tenants are still in here. Like they're going to break that window again. Why do I have to do it? And like, because you have to, and you're going to be fined, or they're going to come and they're going to do it. And you and I both know anyone doing work for the government, especially like, and when it comes down to housing, they always get charged a lot more than a landlord calling in to get that contractor. So if the landlord can't call that contractor in to do it, there's a reason why. And obviously it could be finances to them. Like they're always pegging the landlords to be rich and greedy and just, they all have the money.
Yeah, they're using a broad brush for everyone. Like it doesn't matter if you own one unit or 1,000 units, you're the big rich landlord. One thing that I can say is that the reason why they do this is because I know I hear this in court at the tribunal a lot, is that it's the position of power. The landlord has the power. They're doing it for financial reasons. The tenant is doing it for housing reasons. Therefore, the landlord is in the position of power to maintain the property. Now,
Yep.
I agree with you 110%. There are some tenants that do this on purpose. They damage the property. And even if the landlord wants to apply to the board with an N5, N6, N7, whatever it is, you're still looking at 4, 6, even 8 months to be heard. And usually it's a slap on the wrist. So you don't even get the eviction on it, anyways.
No.
We had an instance one time where tenants stopped paying rent because they were complaining about, and I came into the situation actually partway through. They had a bug issue and they had stopped paying rent because of the bug issue, but yet they wouldn't letting the landlord come in to spray because they needed to vacate the unit for 5 hours. But the mother was
Yep.
elderly and couldn't leave the house for 5 hours. So they could never arrange a time for this to happen. They denied entry, but they kept complaining and they kept saying that they weren't going to pay rent because this wasn't getting fixed, but they weren't allowing it to actually get fixed. And this went on for months, where the landlord was stuck with everything.
So it's funny that you bring that up because, Kevin, that will lead into now something that we were going to be talking about, which is Section 82 issues. So, yeah, there's Kayla. In regards to Section 82, the tenant can tell the board that the reason why they haven't paid rent is because of one of these reasons, which is maintenance concern. And this is why landlords must document everything: the date, the time, emails, text messages. Because if the tenant says that you did not do your duty under Section 20, you need to mitigate your damages and show that you did do your duty. So that when it goes to the board, you can say, I tried to enter the property on this date, this time it was denied. So that any complaints that the tenant makes, you have a rebuttal.
Mhm. I always like tell our landlords when we're doing like having to go and you know you're going to deal with a difficult tenant that knows the loopholes. And it's just proper etiquette as well when you have to file this paperwork. Do your 24-hour inspection, your maintenance inspection at the property at that time. And hopefully the tenants are there so that you can say, "Hey, do you have any maintenance issues?" And then that way you're putting all this stuff as evidence so that if the tenants do plan to do this, before your hearing or at your hearing, at least you now have that submitted as evidence that they can't try to bring that up and catch you off guard to delay the process.
So if you don't mind, I'm just going to say that they cannot just bring it up. It's supposed to be filled out and brought to the landlord's attention. However, remember, we're talking about position of power. If it goes to the board, some of the adjudicators will listen to the matter and actually tell the tenant that we are going to stand down. We're going to let you apply for your own application and have this matter heard. So it's a delay tactic
Yep.
sometimes.
And that's the catchword. However, and that's
However,
just always like, Section 78. However, it's like, when is the rules ever going to be black and white?
no,
I
it's
don't
And I
know.
never
think
will.
that's the big issue right there because one adjudicator is going to say X and the other adjudicator is going to say Y for the same issue, depending on what they're going to come to. They don't actually have
Yeah.
a definitive line as to how they're going to rule. They kind of get to make their own personal judgments.
So this is the thing, guys. This is a tribunal. It's not a court, right? So the person that is hearing the matter is an adjudicator. It's not a judge. So
Mhm.
they're supposed to be following the law, but they do allow their emotions to get involved. On top of that, I don't know if you guys know this, but some adjudicators are tenants.
Oh, yeah, they also come from social justice tribunals as well. So you get
Exactly.
their past work experience really playing on their heartstrings, and the tenants know it. And that's why, like, if you're at a hearing, I would always like Google like landlord and tenant board adjudicators. You get that adjudicator's name. It sucks when you don't have like a click to their bio and who they are. Like I had today, is like but she was good, no complaints there. Really enjoyed that adjudicator. So we have to like really.
Adjudicator will make a huge, huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah, and it
So
sucks, and like you said, Rob, like, it's not a court, but it's tribunal, but at the same time, they've tried to take this what's supposed to be a tribunal, and they really try to make it into a court, and that's why things are now messy. I think it's because it was supposed to be something quick, fast, and efficient, and not bog down the court system, and then if it's anything, like everyone has been saying for many, many years, ever since I've been advocating, is that it's a kangaroo court system.
yeah. Well, I remember the days it used to take 2 months to get to the board. Doesn't do that anymore.
Well, that's the thing. We're at 2.5 months technically right now, but they are now opening up their days with, okay, we have 40 cases in front of us. We will try to prioritize the people who are non-contested. Then we're going to go to the more complicated matters at the end. And just to let you know, if I run out of time, we will have to get you back on another date. And it's like, no, man, you're here today. Like, don't put all these 40 people here. Everyone's sitting on the computer waiting for you, and you run out of time. But this is the inefficiency, right? And this is where I now like to take the stats and the reports that are coming from our government and telling us, hey, we got it from 12 months down to 2.5 months. But are you calculating these cases who are not being seen and they have to get adjourned? This is
Yeah.
where sometimes we have people waiting for government housing and the government offers them $350 to take their name off the list. Is that person considered someone that the government helped and that they were able to get them off the list, making it look like, did you place them or did you just bribe them with $350? Same thing applies with this thing with the landlord and tenant board and the adjourn, because I know a lot of people are getting adjourned. But this
Well,
is where education, I think, is key for our landlords and our tenants to be fully prepared on what to do through a hearing. And if you're not, you have to get yourself a legal representation so that we can speed up this process.
No, it's again, we're back to the length, right? And how things get delayed and how much it really only affects the landlord at that time. It does not affect the tenant. I won't say ever, but majority of the time when cases are delayed, it's in the benefit of the tenant, right? They're not paying or whatever's going on, they're able to stay longer. It's affecting the landlords, the ones that are having to continue to foot the bill. And the government continues to tell them things that they okay, we were going to bring this up, and I guess this is how we're going to get into it. The notices where they can challenge an N12, an N13, and everything like that at the end of it to get a stay and to prolong that. Says it right there on page 2, and
Yeah, they have section 83. It's attached to the L1, L9 update sheet for like your non-payment of rent. You're having I literally printed it off for today because I was like, and this is like normal information that the tenant should know, how much was rent charged after the filing, how much you paid, are you still on the unit? And you still, as a landlord, have to fill out this information, get it to the landlord and tenant board 5 days before your hearing. You also have to provide a copy to the tenant. So what would happen, Rob, if we don't provide a copy to the tenant as well? Is that going to adjourn the hearing? And then on there, it legitly says that if the tenant lost their job or owes rent, but got a new job and willing to repay the landlord very soon, someone has agreed to loan the tenant money to pay the arrears, aka a friend or a social services, which obviously delays this. And the tenant has a disability or chronic illness that will make finding a new rental unit more difficult. Now, again, like we have landlords who are losing their properties. And I think this is something that is not quite in the media yet. And I think we're going to hear that soon about the mortgages and property taxes defaulting. And I think it just came out around St. Catharines area. So there is a lot of homeowners who are suffering. But again, why are the landlords being the safety net for these tenants when there is government programs out there that help tenants in hardship situations?
because it's easier to pass on to a private landlord. That's why.
Certainly
it,
is. I now became a social worker and a police officer underneath Bill 10.
Well, Bill 10 is going to be interesting. I hope it doesn't get ascended to law. But the thing is that we talk about that right now?
yeah,
Yeah, why not? I think it's a good conversation because it's got his royal assent. It's just now depending on where the fine wording comes into place for the
Right.
landlords. Big landlords are obviously concerned about this as well.
Yeah. So my understanding is that they're trying to put more responsibility onto the landlord. Like maintenance is already there, so I don't understand how that's going to help anything. But in regards to the rental increases, I believe that a landlord should be able to raise the rent whatever the market value is. That's
Mm.
just my opinion, especially if the tenant moves out. I know there's talk that they want to keep it to the same as the previous tenant, which I don't. And if they're gonna do that, what about property taxes? Property taxes keep going up. So, what is gonna encourage a landlord to stay as a landlord?
They're not. They're taken off. And I think that's where we get into Bill 51. You always look at different bills, guys, like anything affecting the landlords and the tenants in 2025. Now, again, this is NDP. We're dealing with a conservative government, but there is a bill that is supposed to go through a second read. That is going to be Bill 51. I don't know if I printed off all the information that was going to be here, but this is where they are trying to expand tenant rights and to
Yep.
challenge rent. Tenants can apply to the landlord and tenant board to confirm the maximum lawful rent that should be paying. If overcharged, landlords must rebate the difference. A creation of a rent registry. Landlord and tenant board will remain a public rent registry. Landlords must file rent statements whenever a lease is signed or rent changes. Landlords cannot increase the rent until they've filed with the registry. Tenants and prospective tenants will be able to see the rental history for the unit. These are like, you have to look up Bill 51, like what they're asking for. And this is mandatory legal representation for tenants. Tenants automatically qualify for legal aid representation at the landlord and tenant board if facing applications for rent increases above the guidelines. No eligibility test, no financial contribution requires. I was
But that
like,
happens right now, Kayla. That
I
happens right now.
and that's the thing, like, it's always gonna be in there, and it's like, well, where is our elected officials coming to bat for our landlords trying to do it? They also have landlords' maintenance obligations, something that's already there. It says, "Clarifies the strengthening landlord's responsibility to keep properties in good repair, safe, and habitable. Landlords can be found in breach even if they claim they've made effort, but the property's still not up to standard." I'm like, they're making effort to fix it, but now they're not doing it in your time frame, so now you wanna hang the landlords out to dry. Who would want to invest in this province, right? And a part of what I advocate for, and I've been doing it for 15 years, and we always look at, we got little tidbits here and there from our government, but at the same time, if I can try to say, "Hey, landlords, I'm gonna help you with any type of tools to protect you through this kangaroo court system that we're dealing with, but also encourage our investors outside of the province to stay away from this province," I know I'm making a job harder for our elected officials because people are looking to them to fix these problems. And well, if the government's not going to do it and our nonprofits are struggling to do it and our private landlords are staying out of there, we got a big problem coming. And I always tell them, like, the worst is yet to come.
I
Yeah,
agree.
The worst is yet to come.
I'm hearing, as we all have been, people are wanting to flee the country, sell their properties, and get investing elsewhere in the states and foreign countries, and out west to Alberta and out east to New Brunswick because things are better out there than here. But there's so many opportunities here, and we need so much here that they do have to get on board with this to start making some changes, or else they will lose all the small landlords. And then what are they going to do? Because they need this for the housing. We have the situation you mentioned about having the programs out there to help facilitate these people. But the problem with that one is now they can actually turn around and say, no, don't direct my housing funds to my landlord. Please direct it to me. And then that person who obviously has poor money habits or other bad habits is going to take that money and go spend it elsewhere. I don't see how, if you're getting money for housing to help you with housing, it should go anywhere but for your housing. I think that is the simplest change that they can make sure that tenants are going, and at least if they're on those programs, that they can't have any control over that money. That money needs to go to the landlord. Sometimes it's not even the full rent amount, anyways, right? It's only a portion of it, and the tenant still has to come up with it. So, anyways, I don't think that the tenant that's on those programs should have any control over where it's directed if you're on that type of a program.
Yeah.
No, and they will. They'll still give it, the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, like, there's still not even enough funds that are available to people receiving assistance. But there is obviously those emergency rent relief programs that can help them bail them out. But we have to also make sure that the tenancy is viable. Like, if you have these programs bailing out people $10,000 between municipal and regional programs, and then they go back to not paying rent again just to end up evicted anyways, like,
Yep.
I think the money could have been well spent elsewhere, but at the same time, we are, as taxpayers, paying for the cleanup of these encampments. We're paying for it when people are inside of our unfortunately, in our hospitals, and they're being taken care of because of the homeless population. This is a mismanagement of our housing crisis. And this is where we have to understand that how can we expect the same people who created this problem to fix it?
I
How?
agree. Yep.
Oh my God. It's been a lot. It's been a rough 2 weeks, guys. I'm unfiltered.
Let it go. Let it all out, Kayla.
Oh,
Let it.
letting it go, guys, letting it go, and if you're watching this and, like, put your comments in here, like, do you agree with what we're saying? Like, what is the next topics you want us to talk about? Because this is what it's all about is telling people like it is, and I think we have a lot of elected officials that do think the way we think, but unfortunately, they can't say anything because it's going to impact them when the next election comes. It's going to impact their party, so they are very careful on what they say and how they say it. Just like Olivia Chow is very much all about the tenants because look at the population in Toronto. She knows where her tenant base is. She knows where her voter base is. So she's not stupid, and she lived in government housing. She knows what it's like in government housing. But hey, let's like, look over here and not over here. The mind games that are being played by our elected officials, and you got to call them out for it. And you got to let them know. I want to be able to put the comments of who is running this bill 51 so that people understand who these people are because their names are always in the media because they come up with the craziest titles to make people go, what? I'm going to click on them. And their names are always now being appeared in the public. So and that, we want to, they can appear in the public. We don't just want it in a good way.
Agreed.
Kayla, that's right. It's like winding you up and just boom, let you go. And I love it.
And people are like, oh, you need to run. I'm like, I'm not being silenced. I'm waiting until I'm off like these 2 city committees that I'm on. I'm ready for the 2026 election in municipal. And everyone should be, look at your area. I know it's a lot. You're going to see a lot of people who are front runners, everyone who has support, from the provincial government, even helping them get elected in through the municipal level. Do your job, like, connect with as many people as you can. Do it now. Put your arm to the ground and say, okay, like who is actually running, get to know them because we need to start either helping the ones that we really, really want because politics and housing, it does come together very closely. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, oh my God, can we just talk about housing, not politics? I'm like, dude, they're like this. Like you can't have
Yeah.
one without the other, but you do have to get involved and you have to start at that municipal level and then get yourself up the ladder.
A few years ago, back in 2018, we did a study, and about 1/3 of Canada was paying rent at that time. I'm very sure today that number is probably closer to 40%. And I bet you that number is even going to continue to grow over the next little bit. Um, tenants are, everybody needs a roof over their head, right? Whether you own, whether you rent, this is something as Canadians we all need. So it has to get there. So, or else the housing problem is just going to continue to get worse. They have to fix these problems for these small private landlords because they are not like the big conglomerates that own multiple unit apartment buildings, 100 units, whatever. And if 5 are in arrears, they're okay because they got 95 still kicking through. It's the single family homes that, we were talking a little bit off camera earlier when good tenants go bad. Is that an episode that we're going to talk about one time? But that happens all the time, right? Where a good tenant for a long period can have life suddenly change. And now the situation is completely different. And the landlord is the one that gets the short end of that stick because in that case, everything benefits towards the tenant, and there's nothing that the landlord can really do. And it's just causing a bigger problem as we're discussing all this.
Kevin, is the definition of insanity is doing the exact same
Nope.
thing and expecting different results. Each politician comes in there going to promise you the sun and the moon. They're going to come in there thinking that they're going to change the system, but the systems ends up changing them. So I've always set myself on the back end. I want to be that loudmouth. I just put an article in about the speed cameras, be a community advocate. I know life is busy and you may not know everything about every topic, but you can be that involved community member. And this is what my goal was, to always educate people on how to get involved, and people not even knowing that they can speak with their MPP. I was like, yeah, you can speak with your MPP. So like, there's so much more that we have to do for education for our landlords and how they become their own advocates for this industry. Because believe it or not, it's still a good industry to be in. We have our great tenants that are out there. Even through a recent eviction on a good tenant that gone bad, you still have to feel bad for like how the economy is impacting the tenants. And in turn, it's going to impact the landlords. So we're all kind of going through these changes, and that's just on the like the economy in itself. So you can't just look at housing. You have to look at everything as a whole when you are in this real estate industry.
Yeah, I think when a tenant starts getting in trouble with bills, the easiest one to avoid is the landlord, Mr. and Mrs. Mr. Rogers and Mr. Visa and MasterCard and all those things. They're harder to avoid, right? You kind of have to pay those ones and they allow it. The way the system goes is that it can be passed the buck off to the landlord, and they're the ones that are going to take the biggest hit.
Well, we tell our landlords all the time, like, so many people are like, "Oh, I get the tenant to provide me with a credit check." I'm like, "Why?" I'm like, "Never take that. That thing is photoshopped like nobody's business." Like, you have to take your words talking to your tenants. You have to, like, get your application. You gotta line it up with the credit check that you're gonna do. But this is where we have different sites out right now where landlords are uploading their orders of tenants that they have evicted, but one, not everyone knows these sites. Number two, the birth dates are not even attached to these things. And by the time the order is getting uploaded, that tenant already found their new victim. We have to encourage all landlords all across Canada to report the tenant's monthly payment history to front lobby. That's the only way that we're going to start to making sure that we're holding these bad tenants accountable and rewarding the good tenants who are always paying, even through COVID, and they were paying. And we want to help them become homeowners.
The majority of tenants out there, right, are good. They pay their rent on time. It's always like, it's with anything. Negativity is always what travels the fastest. That's the word that spreads the most. But again, with all these
Yeah.
tenants that are out there that are great, as I just said, probably more than 40% right now across the country, that's 4 to 10 people. That doesn't mean 4 to 10 are not paying their rent. You know what I mean? We're probably way less than, I don't even want to throw out a number, but I'll say 1 out of 50. Do you know what I mean?
Rob, what do you think would be like the majority of our good tenants that we have? Like, I would say like 80% for me.
I only see the bad cases, but just for my personal properties, my tenants are good. I've
Oh, yeah.
not really had many, but again, when people call our office, it's always the worst case scenario. So I see the worst of the worst, but I'm going to say the majority of tenants are not bad.
Now, my question for Rob, you've seen like you get all of it. Like when they're looking for paralegal, you probably get the nasty of the nasties. What would you feel is the number one mistake our landlords are making?
Not qualifying or using their heart instead of their brains. So a lot of times I hear I let the person in because I felt bad for them, or they said that they were going to be homeless. I just had one on Monday where we had an eviction order. The sheriff came, that believe it or not, the landlord let them back in because they felt bad for them. This is real life. So now the tenant, guess what, is a tenant again because the sheriff is not going to come and re-evict. We now have to restart the process.
And we're the greedy, heartless landlords. We get burned because of our heart. Like, what's wrong with
Well,
you?
and I think
Yeah, I'm going to
Oh,
say
we're Canadian. We're housing providers. We're great people. You know, we see that this is something you
right?
need, and oh, maybe you had a little bit of down luck here, and you want to get that person back up on their feet because there's a helping hand. I see Rob shaking his head right now, and sadly, you know, this is.
so.
I've seen a few times.
I'm going to say something. I know this is, I got to be careful because this is being recorded. I tell landlords all the time, you have to pretend you work for Donald Trump. If you worked for Donald Trump, would you let this person into your property? Because if you do something wrong, guess what's going to
Fire.
happen? You will be fined. Right. And this is the problem, is that people don't treat this like a business. They treat it as a hobby. So they think, oh, this person's a good person. I just went with my gut instinct. That's not enough. For my properties, I do look at credit checks, but I do agree that you have to look at some of these other websites. Open Room, Front Lobby, these are all great resources that you can use. In regards to credit checks, I usually pull them myself and I want the full report because just like Kayla said, they're photoshopped to death. So
Yeah.
I want to be able to make sure I do my due diligence. A lot of landlords don't even look at anything. They just say you can breathe. This is the most common thing is that I don't want to lose money. I want to rent it out as quickly as possible.
I say to people,
And that's
sorry, I say to people all the time, a month of vacancy at the beginning is way better than 6 to 10 months of bullshit at the end. You know, um,
that's
Again,
correct.
we've talked about this many times on a lot of different episodes and different shows that we've done. Vetting your tenant, making sure they're getting in, because once they're in, It is hard to get them out. It has to be done properly. It takes time. So we have to make sure that we are doing our due diligence at the beginning, making sure that we have a great tenant, even knowing that sometimes down the road things could turn sideways and a good tenant could turn into a bad one. Normally that happens through a poorly managed situation. Sometimes it's from something that can't be controlled, loss of job or whatever like that. But having somebody that's in the middle when you're a landlord to manage your property, to deal with the tenant communications back and forth, always allows those conversations with the tenant to stay professional and factual. No emotion gets involved, which is really where both sides start to go at it back and forth. But
It's important, but take your emotions out of it, guys. Put your little business cap on. You know what's unfortunate is that there is that time back in the day where we could let our heart run with this business. Back in the day, it was great. If there was not tent encampments that were all over the place, but at the same time, our government has pushed our private housing providers to run this as a business and
Mhm.
not take any chances because of the delays, because of all the rights that you've given tenants and you haven't given landlords. You're going to have your very few landlords stick around. And I can tell you, they're going to be hard on their tenant screening. They're going to be hard on their rules and process of dealing with tenants inside of the unit. Like our landlords sit there and be like, oh, the tenant put a trampoline and they put a fire pit in there. And now I'm like, you got to nick that stuff in the butt right away as soon as they move in there. Don't let this kind of get bigger and bigger of a problem. And then when it does escalate, because it will, and your emotions are ready to flip off the lid, now it's going to cost you because you're going to have to get that property manager to come in and be that middleman in between. And also, it's going to be great evidence for you to have that middle person when you do also have to go to the landlord and tenant board. And I'm telling you, it's going to be like, it's like Russian roulette, like let's go ahead and roll the dice, see which adjudicator you're going to get. And that's unfortunate because everyone was like, "Oh, you would be a good adjudicator." I'm like, "I would probably be the Judge Judy of the landlord tenant board." It would not go very well. But at the same time, do you think they're even going to give me an interview? Hell no.
I don't get it sometimes. I think they're way too lenient on tenants. I don't know how if a tenant owed, I think it was like $6,800 or something like that. And then they agreed to settle on a lesser amount. I don't know why that was even an option. And then then they made them split the water bill that was owing between them and the property owner as well. And then they said to him, and if you leave early, we'll let you use your last month's deposit to knock off some of that money as well, which all fine and dandy for the tenant, but now you still have vacancy for that landlord because now this tenant's able to move on and save himself some more money that he's already not paid anyways. It's too much. It's a landslide almost.
Rob, why does the adjudicator love asking the landlord? Two things. One, is there, even though the tenant didn't show up, why, if there's any areas of Section 83 that the landlord knows of, um, in order to weigh on her decision or his decision? And two is they always ask if there's children in the household.
Yeah, because of human rights. That's why. So they ask these questions so that they'll say to the landlord, "Is there any reason why I should deny or hold off the eviction?" And usually, most landlords don't know what to say, but the legal reps are trained in this, and we say, "No, there is no reason why we should not continue with an eviction. But they have to ask that because if there are Section 83 issues, they have a duty to deny or extend the eviction.
And that was put in with Section 83, if I'm not mistaken, through COVID.
No, Section 83 has always been there. So
Was it?
remember, going back to the RTA, if you look at the RTA, the last amendment was 2006. A Section 83 has always been in there. The thing is that tenants have gotten smarter.
I thought they magnified it through COVID and they stuck it around.
Well, the thing is that COVID did make a lot of changes, but it brought it into the light. But Section 83 has always been there. Same with
Mm.
Section 82. It's just that they're coming to light now. And like I said, tenants are going on the internet. There are a lot of tenant advocate groups, I'm sure you know about them, that are teaching tenants how to get around the system.
Now, the children thing, is that still a human rights because you're evicting somebody with children?
Yeah. So depending on their age, they may delay or deny an eviction.
And
Now,
what would a delay look like? And could you see a full outright denial just because they have children?
no, we don't see a full out denial. Usually it's a delay. So, for example, on a standard eviction, it's 11 days.
Yeah.
They may extend it by 30 days, 60 days. I haven't seen anything past 60 days unless it's an extreme situation. What I have seen on an N12 is going to be for personal use, where let's say the school year is going to end at the end of June, that they will allow them to stay in the property until the school year ends.
So what are they trying to teach our landlords here? Like, you wonder why. Like, these are stupid policies that really look like you're trying to protect the tenants, but it's hurting them. Like, I love the couple I just get. They had 4 kids that I just accepted in a property in Drumbo that my friends were gotten me to lease out, and the cutest little kids, like, no problem. No problem. But again, when landlords hear of stories, listening and observing on the landlord and tenant board, and they hear that, how is that going to make them feel renting out to someone
Yeah,
with
they're
kids?
not gonna want to. They're not gonna want to. Okay, but keep in mind is that when if I was to apply to your property, I don't even have to tell you about the kids because they're considered as occupants, right?
Oh,
So let's say me and Beta were gonna move into your property. I don't have to tell you that there's gonna be any children. Me and Beta are moving in. So we
mm,
sign a lease and then you find out that there's 2 or 3 kids involved. Do I have to let you know of those kids? No. They're occupants, roommates, guests, who knows?
yeah. Now, what happens when, like, you're inside of the unit and there is, like, an overcrowding situation? Do you see a lot of evictions happening, or are we, like, again, giving everybody a bone and or a rope and like, "Hey, you can redo this," or things like that? Like, what are you seeing with overcrowding?
Yeah, so there is quite a bit of overcrowding in certain parts of the city. I'm not going to say where, but you know where. Uh, so if it's a more of a municipality bylaw, so my golden rule is 2 people per bedroom. That's not always accurate, but I
Yeah,
like to say 2 people per bedroom. So if it's a 4 bedroom house, let's say 8 people. If the basement's finished, maybe 10 people. Now,
right.
you would have to check the municipality. But the thing is that what is the landlord going to do? You're going to give an N5. The N5 is a behavioral application. They have the right to change their behavior. How do you prove if that person is still there? Because guest occupants or roommates, they don't have to let you know that they're there. So they can come and go as they please. So if you go to the board and you get an order where, Kayla, I'm sorry, but Kevin can't live with you because it exceeds the bylaw. Yeah, exactly. How do you prove that? And then the question is what prejudice is the landlord facing? Are you collecting your rent? Yes. Is the utilities in their name? Yes. So what's the problem with the landlord? There is no
Yeah.
problem. The only
But
problem would be, yeah,
that's where municipalities come in because the community members are upset with the overcrowding, and that may be done not on the landlord, but the tenants allowing people to live there. There's
that's
no proof of evidence that we can accumulate to bring this to landlord and tenant board. And this is why they think landlord licensing is going to be that solution to it all. But obviously, we're knowing that they're using this as a revenue, just like the speed cameras. But this is where we have to say, okay, this is an ongoing issue. How can the landlords prepare for this? This is where I think a standard lease and knowing who's in the property and saying, hey, if anyone is coming into the rental unit, this is something that I'm advocating for, is that if you do have a tenant that wants other people living in their unit beyond 2 weeks, you should be able to charge more, especially if utilities are included. That is something that I'm kind of, I know you're souring on that one. I know. Come on, Rob. You gotta give me it. What are you thinking?
So the problem is that when you rent out a property, it's the property, not the amount of people.
Yeah.
So here's the thing is that where do you draw the line? So I'm just trying to think on both sides is that if you're renting out a 4-bedroom house and
Mhm.
utilities are not included, it's none of your business who I allow in the property as
I
long as the
agree.
rent is paid and it doesn't go over the bylaw. If it does go over the bylaw, absolutely, the landlord should have a remedy to get this resolved quickly because the neighbors are the first ones to complain. The police cannot do anything about it. And then even to get to the board, like you said earlier, 2.5 months. I'm not seeing 2.5 months, just so you know. I'm
What do you
seeing
see it?
I'm seeing 4 months. And that's if
Where?
no delays. Toronto.
See, I'm in I don't know if, like, from the
Oh, you're in
different.
Kitchener, right?
Yeah, KWC area, so it was, like, 2.5 months
So
for.
you're lucky 2.5 months, but like you said, is that let's say it's 4 months, like
Yeah,
argumentally speaking. And when you get there on a hearing block, just like you said, you'll have 40, maybe even 50 people, and the adjudicator tells you we might not have enough time, that means we might need to adjourn. So I always tell people you're guaranteed a hearing date, you're just not guaranteed to be heard.
yeah. But then again, when we go back to, like, the utilities being included and having the people that were renting it for the rooms in itself and utilities are extra, if they
That's
brought in an extra income, why isn't the landlord able to just compensate from the utilities? And I think they've
I
done that with, like, the air conditioning that they did. You're allowed to charge extra now with the air conditioning, obviously, and they have to provide the information of the air conditioning unit. But again, whose responsibility to make sure that it's installed properly? So that's another topic. But again, it comes down to bringing that fairness back and forth with everybody and
that I
understanding.
agree with, Kayla.
And,
That
and
I
that's
agree.
and it's not gonna be like you're not gonna charge because you got a kid, you know what I mean? But if there was another adult that they're moving in, because that's what we're seeing. Because of the rents, because of the economy and what's happening, we are seeing families congregate together in units and in properties. And that's when you now get the creativity of these private landlords who are now gonna look for their loopholes of whatever they can do to gain control back over their property and reset to, because the increases, everything is increasing. Our mortgages, our taxes, our insurance, like the utilities, everything is increasing right down to maintenance. So we have to start understanding that the landlords are treating this like a business. And yes, housing is what they consider is to be a human right. I like to say shelter is a human right in which our government does provide that shelter. Housing is a responsibility. Like, you have to not expect the private sector to provide that to you for free.
Yep. Well
Like,
said. Well said.
oh man, I've been quiet for too long, eh, guys?
No, I like it. You're a good app for landlords, so go ahead.
Dude, like, I can't, like, I said to him, like, "Hey, Rob, I gotta get you on my channel as well and get Kevin. We're gonna be on another podcast, guys, coming up in the next couple of weeks as well." So, I just had to cancel, that, but I do appreciate the opportunity to connect with your viewers as well as share this video to my following, and I appreciate every single one who've showed me their support, not only for landlord advocacy, but through my husband. So, this is the time for me to to give you my heart, and I want to thank you from the bottom for all your prayers, and I still need them, so keep them coming.
Yeah, I think it's
Nice.
just about getting that information, like we're saying right off the top, and all we're always trying to do is make sure that the landlords out there are getting proper, right information, guidance, so that they can make informed decisions that are best for their specific situation. Hope.
You gotta talk about it. You gotta talk about what we're seeing and the inefficiencies of our system, because sometimes it's like, you're a fish looking in, or you're swimming in this tank and everyone is swimming in circles. Like, we know that there's a process in place. We have a lot of, like, we have the dispute resolution officer, we have the moderator, we have the adjudicator, you have all the people sending out these forms and whatnot that's happening. Like, we have to put our efforts to make sure that it's providing that justice to both landlords and tenants, and letting them know that the government is looking for fairness awareness, not just protecting just the tenants, because they think it's going to help the municipalities in the long run, because they're not going to deal with the effects of an eviction in their municipality, and they're going to pay approximately, and taxpayers, you're paying $3,000 approximately every single month to house one person in an emergency shelter, and this is not even touching the immigration and people seeking asylum here. We have a huge problem, and we need people like us, people with boots on the ground who are in the industry. Robert, you've been at the Landlord and Tenant Board. You know this inside and out. You know the loopholes. You know what to expect from professional tenants who, time is tough. They're desperate. They're going to do whatever they can to avoid having to go to that shelter, to avoid having to go to the streets. And we feel really, really bad for them. And this is why I became an advocate. This is why I put my face out on every platform that I can to highlight where things are going bad and how we can make it good for the good tenants and the good landlords, and make sure that we're providing proper support for people who are going through challenging times in their life. Like, we're not heartless assholes.
It's got to be about fairness. It's about getting everything level. The fact that tenants get free help through the paralegal system that's covered, when the landlords can be owed $30,000 upwards, and they are having to then go pay for someone to help represent them at that same thing to make it fair. If they get representation, I should get representation. And if they lose, the landlords, no, you're saying no, but it should be that way. We're not getting any money. They're not paying me any money. Why do they get free and we still have to pay? It's
Well, it's you know what? Like, even for when I talk about the 186, that filing fee that landlords have to pay just to get in the door. But who is going to be responsible for that? The tenants are. Are they going to issue an eviction if the tenants pay all the rent except that 186? No, they won't. Like, and again, I know we're coming close to time here, but Robert, like, Section 78, I've seen it time and time again, where we ask for it. We're like, tenants, we're going to work things out again in front of the tribunal, because we tried to do it outside of the tribunal. You didn't want to play ball. We're now at the tribunal. We're working a payment plan with you. We're also suggesting or enforcing that we want the rent to be paid on time and in full, and we're going to attach a Section 78 attached to it. What happens? Tenants don't pay up their payment plan. They don't make their monthly rent on time and in full. You file your L4 application at the Landlord and Tenant Board to say you're going to get your order from the Landlord and Tenant Board without any knowledge or notice to the tenant, but tenants can still ask for another hearing, and they put out another payment plan. So how come our Landlord and Tenant Board is not even fulfilling the Section 78, in which, like,
welcome to my world. Welcome. I agree. And the thing is that even though they do get noticed by the sheriff. The sheriff gives them a notice saying you're going to be evicted. They call the Landlord and Tenant Board. They'll talk to the board, and they'll say that this is what you need to do. You need to put a stay on it. And then there will be a merits hearing of why it was stayed. And then the tenant can whine and complain again. And most times, not always, they do lift the stay and proceed with the eviction. But they just bought themselves another month or two of staying in the unit. So why? I don't have the answer to why. It's just one of those things. It is what it is.
We're still questioning on 11 days. Like, nah, I remember, like, you get to walk out of that Landlord and Tenant Board, like, facility with a paper. Like,
You don't do.
no, you got the portal, something generic. Like, if I want people to look, and I tell our elected officials, like, look at the Landlord and Tenant Board in Newfoundland. It's like a 1-2 pager. We got like pages. We're killing some trees going on here. But it's just something to make them look good. But there's still that process that should be cleaned up. Something that needs to be enforced. Our tenants need to know they need to do this. Like, it's, if not again, the landlords are going back and forth, the landlord and tenant board. We're wasting taxpayer dollars having our adjudicators, having our dispute resolution officers, having our moderators. Plus, we're also having the legal representation from our legal clinics there to help the tenants. Like, we're seeing a lot of resources being wasted just because they can't put these rules in a black and white situation and giving everybody benefit of the doubt. And hey, if you're in a hotel and you stop paying for that night, what's going to happen?
See ya.
Yeah.
I think the police are being called.
Yeah, but that's under a different legislation.
I know. I want to be a hotel. I want to be a hotel.
I have a 5-room hotel.
We're going to do nightly rates.
Hey, short-term rental.
Have you ever seen, Robert, like anybody doing like 7 days, like instead of 14 days?
I've never seen that.
Like, because I've seen it, like, it was like, oh, if you're on your N4 notice, is that if you're billing monthly or if you're billing weekly, like they put it on there, like,
I have never personally seen weekly, and the reason is most people use a realtor, and usually with a realtor, you get a 1-year lease.
mm.
Yep.
Right, Kev? As an agent?
Yeah, that's true.
It's usually 1 year. They get a commission of half of 1 month's
Yeah.
rent.
No, look,
Now people ask me all the time, do you do yearly leases or month-to-month lease? What do you guys pick?
I always choose month to month.
What do you say, Kevin? Don't listen to
So-
us. What
well-
do you?
The realtor, so if he gets clients, he would push the 1 year.
the thing is with the 1 year, exactly, it's a guaranteed 1 year that they're not going to need to bring us back again. I say guaranteed, but if the tenant chooses to vacate and they're going to help them and they're going to chase them, then we're
You
coming in
guarantee that, my friend.
anyways. But no, we normally do 1 year, and then with new construction, that's the one time you have to do the 1 year to get your HST back, right? Like you have to have at least a 1 year lease when you're renting out new construction to get that HST rebate from the builder, so that you don't have to pay it because it's not your primary residence. So that's
Yeah.
$20,000-$30,000 that they're getting back. So they need that 1 year lease in place. Obviously, with a month to month, it's a little bit more protection for the landlord. If anything's going wrong, they don't have to wait to that 1 year. They don't have that tenure, right? And they can start doing something. But yeah, we always do a 1 year lease, and it's just like a property management company or whoever else does leases. I believe it's traditional across the board that everybody charges 1 month's rent as commission, and then with us, because there's two sides or sometimes not, just us doing both sides, it gets split in half. But 1 month's commission seems to be what I've seen all across the board, what everybody's charging.
Yeah.
Rob, why do you like doing month-to-month?
Just because I want more control. That's all. Just
And
because.
what control does it give you?
Well, you can't. So if you're in a 1 year lease, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, you can't give an N8 for persistent late until it's on the end. There you go, right? It has to be on month to month.
I just need you saying it.
Yeah. And even on the N12, I don't own single family homes anymore, but I wouldn't do an N12 on my properties. But even on the N12, you have to wait till the end of the term. So that's where the problem is that on the N12, second page, fourth paragraph, it tells them that they don't have to move out anyways. The landlord has to apply to the board. You're looking at, let's say, 4 to 6 months to get to the board, 2 months to get the order. That's another problem. And then depending on where you are, I'm seeing for downtown Toronto, up to 8 weeks for an eviction.
And that's like my recent article I'm pushing out here, is that they literally, the forms in itself says, if N12 notice, you can do not move. If you do not agree, you do not have to move out if you owe this money. It's like, what? Like, no, pay the money or you get out. Like, where did that go?
So that's where I'm going to disagree, because there is a lot of fraudulent N12s and there's a lot of fraudulent N4s. And that's why they have the option to be heard, because in this great country of Canada, you do have the right to be heard.
But if you have an N4 that was given to the tenant and they could get it or not get it, like if they don't serve the tenant, then they have a hearing and they have an order from it. But if you have an N4 notice given to the tenant and the tenant ends up not knowing about it, but the landlord is putting it into the portal, the tenant can have access to the portal,
Yep.
knowing what's been, because they got to put their email in there. Then this is where you're keeping everybody in the loop of what application has been filed, because that's where you can avoid the fraudulent applications. But this is where it gives the tenants the opportunity to say, hey, I paid, or B, here's a payment plan. Right now, they're automatically giving everybody and their mother a hearing for non-payment of rent. The number one application at the Landlord and Tenant Board is for non-payment of rent.
Yep.
When we have adjudicators at what, $110,000 salary, and they're dealing with people who can't. What you got? What do you got?
I can't speak about that.
So are we doing Kevin, are we doing a meetup? Like, are we like, like, we need to do
Yes.
this stuff
The end of
offline?
September, aren't we? Are we doing one at the end of
Yeah.
September?
So we have another couple of investor summits coming up in the fall. Dates will be released on that. There's going to be one on the east side of Toronto on either September 25th or October 15th. We'll get all those dates out so that everybody knows. Thanks so much for joining us today. Kayla, Rob, do you have anything that you want to finish off with before we let these people go?
I would like to remind everybody that I will be on X, also known as Twitter, on the first Thursday of every month. So the next one's on September 4th at 7 p.m. Hope to see the both of you gentlemen there as well. This is just a casual Kayla Unfiltered, the call-in housing show where you just dial in. You can have a different name on your Twitter account. You can listen in as an anonymous listener. We're going to be talking pretty much a lot of these different topics that we're talking about tonight, where you can speak freely, aka Rob, and give your opinion without having your name associated to. Because I know there's a lot of people who are in the political field, or they're a firefighter, they're a police officer, they're a teacher. They all are like in this real estate world, but they feel like they can't speak up against the system that is their government, the government that pays them. So this was an opportunity for us to have this nice conversation. No video, just a casual conversation. I love having it every single month. So September 4th at 7 p.m.
Awesome.
Yeah, for me, I was gonna say thanks for chiming in. And if you like educational videos about helping landlords, we have a YouTube channel, Instagram channel, Facebook channel, and you can just follow us at Stonegate Legal Services. And everything that we give away is free. We try to advocate, just not as strongly as Kayla, but we try to help landlords become better landlords, I guess you could say.
If I ever go missing, guys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I guess that wraps it up for today, everybody. Thanks so much. This is August version of what landlords need to know, and now you know. So thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.